to Siggy Tube. Hope you're okay, everybody, in these really difficult times. Today, I want to focus on a series of workshops, actually, that are all about starting material, starting points, essentially. It's the one hardest point, I think, that any musician or songwriter has, this idea of having writer's block or being inspired. And I've used to have lots of arguments with many bands when I was younger about whether you should or shouldn't force an idea. I kind of concluded that it's always good to try and force something, even if you don't use it, because it's that kind of memory muscle, if you like, that kicks in, and more often than not, something will inspire you, even though you might not feel like, picking an instrument up or whatever. So welcome to the studio. There's lots of bits and pieces around here, and this studio is really designed to be a creative hub. I'm inspired by working in many ways, whether that be a traditional picking up an acoustic guitar or a bass, or working with sounds, and I like to experiment and use all different ways. I'm going to do something that's very conventional this morning, and something that I do quite a lot, and it's use the bass guitar to provide something that will be a platform, and we'll see what happens. Got no idea what's going to happen, and that's the idea really of these workshops. And if you can pick something out of it, and if I can offer any kind of guidance, or you think, oh, I didn't think about doing that, then hopefully it's of some help. So I'm going to use Logic as my recording device, and I like to use a recording device because you never know when you're going to do something that should have been captured, and if you're not, chances are you'll probably forget it. So when I pick up the bass in a minute, hopefully something will happen and I'll get something out of it. Now I always like to start with a platform, and that platform for me will always be some kind of rhythmic device, and whether that be a loop or whether that be something that I've played, that's going to be the thing that inspires me the most. So I first of all kind of hanker down and think, well, what am I feeling at the moment? I'm actually quite upbeat today. I'm feeling a kind of funky kind of element or whatever. Funk's my bag anyway. So I'm going to start off with using Logic to provide myself with a beat. Okay, now Logic's great because it's got a thing in here called Drummer. So if I go into Logic and I press Drummer, it will create me some MIDI loops. We can change the tempo of those if we like. So that's just a bit too slow straight away. Now the way that this, I'll just give you a quick explanation actually of the drummer loop. I think people probably sometimes get a little bit confused as to how this drummer thing works. Essentially what it is, it's a load of MIDI loops that's very cleverly kind of attached to the way you manipulate the actual drummer. You can add fills and you can do lots of different things with it. You can also pick different presets here and different drummers as well. So all kinds of things that you can do. Important one though is that if you, let's say that you did like what the automatic drummer threw up at you, but you would like to add some of your own fills, or you'd like to augment this or add different things to it, it really is as easy as making a drum kit designer track. So drum kit and drum kit designer are essentially the same instrument in Logic. Okay, so if I go into another instrument and I load up drum kit designer, and I was based on the instrument Slow Jam, so I just bring up the other one so you can see them. Let's bring up that. Okay, so it's a Slow Jam kit. So if we put this one and bring up the same kit, then that's going to give us exactly the same sound. Okay, and what we can do is simply drag the drummer track down to our Drum Designer track, and it turns it into MIDI. Okay, and then we can edit it in any way that we choose because it's MIDI. Important thing though is once you've dragged it off the drummer track, you can't drag it back again. Okay, in terms of it being a drummer track, it stays. Still play, but it's no longer a drummer track, it becomes a MIDI track. So easiest way of doing this, and if you are unsure that you want to use it, is to just copy it by pressing your Alt button and copying it across, so you've got the MIDI and you've got the drummer track, so you can mute the drummer track if you then want to come back to it. Now what I want to do is I want to just create a small loop. Let's put it over 4 bars to get myself going, and I'm not really interested too much in what it's going to be played like, and you know, whether I'm going to use this in the piece itself, because what I do tend to do a lot is get something and then use that as a platform for something else, and then that gets replaced and so on. So I'm not really interested at this moment. All I'm doing is saying, well, I know how to play some kind of beat, and I'm just going to input a beat, and I want a beat that sort of feels boom, cha, boom, boom, that kind of pattern. Okay. Okay. Now we'll do with a little. Go from 2, loop that around. There we go. Put that back there. Now, I always use the quantize button here, just for ease of use. We've got a smart quantize as well, that basically will put things almost next to the grid, but you can see that it offsets a little bit. So you've got a choice whether you want it to have a bit more human feel. You can change how much it goes by. You can also put the amount of quantize in here, and you can kind of there's your range. You see, you can say what the range of notes and how much you want it to quantize by, or you can just use smart quantize. That's classic. You see what happens. I say all we want this for is to be a bass to play against for the bass guitar. So I'm going to do a straight quantize on that, and I'm going to add some hi-hats, put that across. So I'm not interested in this to be anything other than a glorified metronome. So that's what I don't really care too much about what it is. So let's give it a nice little vibe already. Okay. Now, most important thing, let's get the bass guitar. Now, essentially, I'm going to deliberately limit myself to saying I'm going to play just a certain amount of notes. So let's plug the bass guitar in. It's going in through a preamp over here. That will go straight into Logic. But obviously you can have this just set up on anything, record on your phone or whatever. The principle here is not about recording in Logic, it's actually being creative. So let's grab myself an audio track and I'll plonk that underneath my little drum track. Put it straight underneath. There's my drum track. I'm going to join that together. I'm going to quickly use my glue tool there, glue it together. There we go. And then I can just copy and paste a few of those out. So I'm going to just do a few so that I've got something to jam against. Okay. So let's get my bass guitar tuned up very quickly. So I've got input, I think it's input 2 I'm coming in on, so make sure that's working. There it is. Need a bit more gain on that. So I'm going to limit myself to pattern. Okay, now the pattern just happens to be these 4 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Now, this isn't about you being able to be a bass guitarist or even proficient. What it's about is experimenting, limiting yourself to just a certain amount of notes and saying, well, what can I do with them? On a quick kind of quick tip kind of hint thing on bass guitar, for those of you who aren't bass guitarists, I think bass guitar is a really cool instrument to have, even if you're not a bass player, because the foundation of understanding of how low end works is really important. But for those of you who aren't bass players, there are basically different ways of playing the bass. Obviously, fingers, they give you the most normal way of playing. Some people will use a pick. I've got a pick in my pocket, and I really hate people that say, oh, real bass players don't use a pick. Different sound. So depends on what you're after. You've got your slap, of course, and then you've got one that I really love, which is to use your thumb, but with the palm mute, because you get a real kind of key, and that in itself can become quite inspiring. So I'm limiting myself to just these 4 notes, those. So let's get the drum track working, and I'm just going to play around with it until I establish something that I like, and then I'm going to record it and see if I can pull something out of it that's going to become a bass to start building from. I'm here. Well, I'm hearing something. Okay. So what's happening in my mind now is that I'm picking up on something, and I'm going with it, and I'm not worrying too much about whether this is something that's going to be wrong or right or whatever. I'm just picking something up, and literally, I heard something as soon as I started messing around. Ba ba boom, bam boom, bam ba ba boom, bam boom. Okay, and I'm going to just plonk that down, because this is the most important thing. It's not about being a virtuoso on any instrument. It's about how those instruments are going to work with each other. If I like that, and I'm thinking, well, I quite like that, I'm not worried about it sounding like anything else at the moment, but I'm saying, well, what could we do with it? And we'll see what we can do with it. That's the whole point of showing you how you can work. Okay, so let's put this on. Just make sure I've got my fingers right in it. Okay, now I haven't really learnt that, but I'm gonna kind of try and wing it, and let's see if it works. And then come back again. And I want to do, hang on, I want to do it on the end of it. I'm nearly getting it. So I've got 2 little bits now. I'm getting that quite right. Let's go back and re-record that again. I'm getting there closer. Let's have a bit more volume on that. Here we go. And now I'm deliberately going away from the original thing there because I'm hitting the wrong notes and all kinds of stuff. But this is not necessarily a bad thing, because what I'm going to do is in a second I'm going to go through that and I'm going to listen through it, and if there's anything that I like, I could actually, you know, create something again. I've got it. I'm formulating something now, Anna. So that's going to be my 4-round. That's going to be my 4-round. So so let's pick that. It's gone into the comping mode, which is quite nice. You can use that really to. So let's loop that, see if that sounds any good. See, it's a bit sloppy, so I'm going to play it again. I'm going to go for it again. It's a little bit sloppy. I'm not going to be too worried, but it's got to feel right. It's not. Go into it again. I'm going to put my headphones on. Sometimes I find it easier to lock in with headphones. Okay, so I've got 2 passes there. Let's come back out of that. I think they're okay enough for this, I think. Great little thing that I found works incredibly well is if I were to take a compressor and plonk it on the DI'd bass, because that's all it is, it's just a DI'd bass going through. That bumps it up a little bit, but let's actually put some of it also through so I'm putting it onto a bus here, and I'm going to send a bit to a bus, but on that bus I'm going to plonk a virtual preamp, so a real bass guitar preamp basically. I'm using Amplitude 4 for this, but there's ones that are in every package really. I'm going to use the old Heritage. I'm going to pick that and just mess around with it. Okay, so we've got something there that's usable. So that's a chunk that's usable. So I'm going to just colour that up and cut it down. I like it, it's quite nice. Okay, this is my other little chunk that I'm going to use, and for me it's all about keeping these simple, you know, keep it simple. I'm not necessarily inspired yet, but I think I could be inspired by this, you see, and that's the point really. So that's a bit sloppy there. That's playing's not the greatest in the world, but I'm just going to loop literally that bit there like that. Okay. So again, it's about the ideas at the moment, and I shall replay all of this anyway. But it's about getting a track up and running. So I'm going to copy that and play it a couple of times. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so we've got something. We've got something that's a starter. Now I'm being pulled towards a guitar for the next stage of this. So I'm going to switch the amp on. Press up a bit more volume. So we've got 3 and 4. Just going to quickly label these up. I used a stereo rig for a long time. I really like stereo rigs. They do offer something that's okay. Let's take these out of mute and hopefully they'll go through Logic. So I'm going to try and just lose myself in this groove for a second so that I can then come up with something. Now I know that it's in the key of A, and at the moment because it's using those things there, we've got different things that we could do with it. It's pointing towards possibly a mode, more of which we'll do in other tutorials, workshops, but let's play against it and see what we've got. So, get the drums up a little bit, they're a bit low, aren't they? So that's going to D there, you see. So it's a very kind of simple 12-barring type of thing where you're going up to the 4th. So I'm going to focus, rather than going around and going up to the D, I'm literally just going to keep it on the groove until I've got something that's going to kind of stick, because I want something to stick. And I might try different sounds on this as well. And I might think about a melody as I'm playing around. Or I might just think about the rhythm part. very mindful of the fact that I could just start soloing to this and then really getting nowhere with it. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose myself in the soloing. I want to be actually thinking of how I would sing this. Well, I'm not liking that. Again, just too much of a solo there, isn't it? Yeah. That's quite nice. Okay, so we've got a phrase, and I'm going to record that phrase. And that will be my vocal starting point again. And for me, that's the most important part, because it's about that melody. You know, I could sit and I could solo against that groove for ages, but I want to come up with something that is going to set me off on that journey. You know, again, it might change, and that's the important thing here. But it's about digging in and just seeing what you can come with. We've been able to record things as a scratch kind of pad for doing these things. It means that you can always be surprised about what might pop out. But I'm thinking as a bass player and as a drummer and as a singer and as a songwriter as well, and I'm not just being defined by the fact, oh, it's just a 4 chord and I'm just doing the thing across the top of it, you know. I will think about chords in a second, but let's just get this little bit down, okay. I think I prefer that one. I think. So let's do that then, shall we? Let's put that down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. It's all about the easiness of it, and this is the thing that's very, very important. So just playing around there with a little bit of a tread on the top of it. simple as that. You know, I'm not going to get it any more complicated than that. I am just, this is now starting to give me a picture of a track. And that's the important thing. I don't know where this is going to go, but it's giving me a vibe. As soon as I've got that, I'm off and running. I'm probably going to have a word next that comes into my mind. Let's just get this little bit down. Okay, here we go. I'll come in on the second time round. Brilliant. Okay, we've got something up and running. Lovely, lovely. Now, that immediately has got something that I can use. So I've got that the riff, but let me drag this out now. So I'm going to pop that, and I'm going to bring the riff in, or the melody, or whatever, the second time round. I'm happy with the way I took it on the second take there. So I'm going to do a flatten on that one. I'm going to put these on a group, by the way, because you can work really quickly when you put things on a group in Logic. And if you put them on a group and you put them on an edit group, so I'm going to just call that guitar 1. And you see that they're now going to be on edit group. I'm going to take automation off, but leave them on edit group there. And then this one here, let's see what the mixer looks like, just to show you. See, they're both on there, you see. I need to pull them left and right like that. Buff, buff, buff. Okay, and I'm going to flatten them, because I like the second time around on that. I'm going to put that over there. I'm going to bring in the electric guitar in a second, so I'm going to move that. I'm going to pop these together. I'm going to get rid of some of these. Whenever I start a track, I always have a similar template. Oops, undo that. Do that. Put these up here. That's the bass guitar. Make sure that you title things up, otherwise you lose where you are. Okay. And you don't want to do that. Okay, there's my guitar. So I've got a loop now of 16 bars. Okay, it's going to come in from there. It's going to pop this over. This is going to be the next section that we work on. We'll pop that over there, and there we go. Just turn that bass down a little bit. It's a little bit too much, and let's just put a bit more sparkle in those guitars, a little smidge in there. I'm just going to use the bog standard Logic settings for now. Just put a little bit of sparkle at the top of there, a little bit in there, pull them back a little bit of cut down the bottom, and just copy that in straight against the other guitars. Again, it's not about this making it sound, it's the creating process. Electric. So there's something up and running immediately, and that is the point of this. And I'm not going to carry it on anymore, because I literally just wanted to show you the process of doing the build with the bass. And we're going to do the process with the build with the guitar or with the keys on a different version. But that immediately is giving me something very, very simply that is usable. And there are a couple of different points to kind of pick out of this. And the thing that I want you to take from it is keep it simple. Work through something as a chunk by chunk, little bit. limit yourself to 2 or 3 notes. What will actually happen in that is that you will invariably start to hear something. What you don't want to do when you're starting out in particular is be a victim of what you can do technically in an instrument, because that is inhibiting. You know, when you start out, it's going to take you a long time before you feel comfortable with the shapes of different scales and with your muscle memory of what you can and what you can't do. But the one thing that you can always do is hear something. And that really makes no difference to how good you are on an instrument. So to be able to hear something and try and play it back, I think is a very, very important part of playing. You know, too many guitarists, for example, you know, are shown the minor pentatonic shape and then they just play up and down the notes, and that doesn't really make any musical sense, and you end up sounding the same as everybody else as well. And that's a really important thing. You know, everything that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to go along my own pathway and not try to copy someone. I mean, invariably it's going to sound like someone else, because then you start tweaking it into your own way. Okay, so this is just really basic. I mean, as soon as I start adding synth on that, if I were to go that pathway, then that would be completely different as well. But you see that the most important part there. It doesn't matter if you can sing or you can't. The most important thing, I think, is melody. In everything you do, melody. You know, otherwise you're going to be a guitarist that goes, "Oh, I've got some chords here," and you'll come up with a 4-chord trick. And not that there's anything wrong with coming up with 4-chord tricks, but everyone comes up with songs through 4-chord tricks. And then it becomes much harder to write something that is going to be different. Okay, one of the things I will do is, you know, chord something from a simple melody, because I think it's a much better skill to have the ability to put chords to a melody rather than put a melody to chords. You know, it's ever so easy to strum some chords, pick some of the chords out of the diatonic and put a melody on top of them. But a melody can dictate much more exciting places that you could go chordally, and you know, that's really important. So hopefully some use to you. I'm just being an advocate of keeping it simple and pulling stuff bit by bit that then can help you out of a kind of a creative hole. So next one, we're going to take the guitar and we're going to go the other way around, and we'll start with just the melody, and we'll see where we can get with that. When teaching, I found that people find that the hardest part about being able to chord melodies. So that's going to be our next one. Stay safe and keep well, and see you next time.